Councilmember Tom Agnew is joining us by phone tonight for the oath of office, which he previously signed, and the election of the mayor and deputy mayor. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Right now, I am going to call roll. Councilmember Agnew.
Present.
Councilmember Evans. Councilmember Freed. Councilmember Lamb.
Present.
Councilmember Rayum. Councilmember Sandberg. And Councilmember Spivey. Present. Thank you. At this time, I would like where'd she go? I'd like to invite Judge Michelle Gelshin forward to administer the oaths of office to Council Members Agnew, Freed, Sandberg, and Spivey.
Do you want to come down, or do you want to stay? All right, Councilmember Agnew, if you'll please raise your right hand, and if you will please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States and the state of Washington and ordinances of the city of Bothell, and that you will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of city council member of the city of Bothell to the best of your ability?
I do. I do.
All right. Thank you, and congratulations, and thank you for your service to our community. Thank you.
Congratulations to all of you. Prior to leaving this evening, I will need to get your signatures on your oath of office. Thank you. At this time, I will conduct the election of the mayor to a 2-year term. The nomination procedures are as follows. I will call for nominations. Each member of the City Council is permitted to nominate one person, and nominations do not require a second. A nominee who wishes to decline at this time will do so. Once all nominations have been made, I will close the nominations. If there is only one nominee, the election will be conducted by voice vote. If there's more than one nominee, the election will be conducted by written ballot. Each written ballot will contain the name of the council member who cast it. Because Councilmember Agnew is joining us by phone tonight and is unable to cast a written ballot, I will ask for his voice vote prior to announcing the written vote. I will publicly announce the results of the election by reading each ballot cast into the record. A majority vote is required. Ties will be conducted by coin toss. And once the mayor is elected, he or she will conduct the election of the deputy mayor in the same manner. Do I have any nominations?
Yes, Madam Clerk. For the last 8 years, I was blessed to have the opportunity to serve as your mayor. And there's a time for everything, and tonight a new mayor will be elected. The person I'll be nominating is an experienced and positive leader who has been our partner in all the accomplishments of the past 8 years. Bothell would not be where we are today without the contributions of Joshua Freed. Joshua is a visionary who is passionate about Bothell's future. Many in town know him as a successful businessman who was born and raised right here in Bothell. I know that he is also a caring and compassionate human being who regularly travels to some of the poorest parts of the world to bring love and hope to the disabled, the forgotten, and the weak. His service in elective office is just that, a service to others. Josh has been an outstanding deputy mayor, and he will be an even better mayor. It is my distinct honor to nominate my friend, Joshua Freed, to be the next mayor of Bothell.
Thank you, Councilmember Lamb. Do we have any other nominations? Councilmember Sandberg?
I'd like to nominate Andrew Rayum for mayor. And I'm sorry I didn't prepare a elaborate statement for you on your behalf, but Andy has served the city well in his first few years during his term, and I think he would be an excellent choice to lead the council going forward.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other nominations?
This is Councilmember Agnew. I'd like to nominate Councilman Evans. Councilman Evans has been on council for quite a long time and probably has more knowledge of city government than any of us do on the dais. I think his expertise would help lead the city in these last phases of our revitalization.
Thank you, Councilmember Agnew. Do I have any others? I'm sorry, Councilmember Evans?
If I could respond to that, thank you, Councilmember Agnew, for your nomination. I appreciate that and have given this a lot of thought, and for various reasons, I will decline the nomination at this time, but I would like to thank Tom especially for his support of the council. Look forward to him coming back.
Thank you, Councilmember Evans. Do we have any other nominations at this time? Seeing none, I will close the nominations. Since we have two nominations, Councilmember Freed and Councilmember Rayum for mayor, I am going to pass out ballots. Councilmember Agnew, I'm going to call on you first. Could you please cast your voice vote for mayor between Councilmembers Freed and Councilmember Rayum?
Councilmember Freed.
Thank you very much. Okay. I'm going to now read the ballots. Councilmember Sandberg voted for Councilmember Rayum. Councilmember Rayum voted for Councilmember Rayum. Councilmember Lamb voted for Councilmember Freed. Councilmember Freed voted for Councilmember Freed. Councilmember Evans voted for Councilmember Freed. And Councilmember Spivey voted for Councilmember Freed. Therefore, by a vote of 5-2, Councilmember Freed is our new mayor. Thank you. I am now going to turn the floor over. Oh, do you want to say a few words? Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to be the mayor for the next 2 years. Look forward to the future of Bothell. A lot of good planning's gone into it, and we'll be working on implementation over the next couple of years. So it's an honor. As a young boy that was born here and raised here for the last 40 years, it's kind of exciting. So on to the next most important business, and that would be to elect a new deputy mayor. Are there any nominations? Councilmember Lamb.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate at this time Del Spivey. Del Spivey has been somebody, again, who was born and raised and has lived his entire life in the city of Bothell. Del is someone who has dedicated his life to public service in the form of the fire service. He is somebody who has been an integral part of all of our efforts here in the city of Bothell over the last 8 years. Del is a good leader. Del is somebody who is connected to our community, and I'm proud to nominate my friend Del Spivey for deputy mayor.
Are there any other nominations? Well, seeing none, do we just do this by a
Do a
voice
voice
vote
vote.
then?
Yes, please.
So all in favor of Del Spivey as deputy mayor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? So unanimously you are voted as deputy mayor. Congratulations, Del.
I'd like to thank you all, and it's truly an honor to be elected by my peers at the dais to this position, and I hope that I serve you and the community well and represent you well. I look forward to moving forward with our revitalization, as Councilmember Agnew pointed out, and moving the city forward to some great things. So, again, thank you very much. I'm honored.
Perfect. Thank you, Del. I'd like to welcome back Councilmember Tris Sandberg to the dais, and we're going to break for a few moments just to celebrate a new council and a new year. So we'll take a break.
Thank you. I'm going to just say at this time, I believe that Councilmember Agnew is going to leave us for the remainder duration of the meeting. So just want to let you know that he will not be returning for the rest of the meeting. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Thank you, Tom.
I will.
All right, the Bothell City Council session is back in order. We're just getting back from a reception, and we have meeting agenda approval. Everybody have a chance to look over the meeting agenda? I believe Councilmember Sandberg came up to me and requested that on item A on the consent agenda, the meetings from December 10th be pulled, and then consent agenda D. Yeah, Councilmember.
Can we pull the minutes off the consent agenda for the meeting of December 3rd as well?
Okay, so it looks like A in its entirety is pulled. Anybody else? All right, seeing none. Everybody got a copy of the projected agenda on the dais tonight. Anybody have any comments? No changes there. We will later in the evening talk about our council retreat. No special presentations. So tonight on the visitor section, I do have a sign-up sheet. I invite members of the public to come up and speak for 3 minutes and address the council with any questions or comments they may have. Some questions may be answered, others may be deferred. First on the list is Rosie Iverson. If you want to come forward, and we just stated your name, maybe your address as well.
Good evening. Happy New Year to everybody. Well, welcome. I look forward to working with you. Andy, I'm sorry, I was looking forward to working with you too, but so call me. But the one thing that I wanted to talk to you also, it's on, but I didn't move it, I'm sorry. The one thing I wanted to talk to Joshua was the thing about asking people for their addresses. Could we start a new thing for the new year where they sign in out there and make sure they sign in and give their addresses so you don't do it on public air, because this goes all over the state of Washington. I had a house break-in. My mail was stolen for weeks at a time, and my vehicles, and all my stuff was stolen from that. I didn't have that problem before I came down here and give my name and address. So could we consider doing that and making a different sign-in sheet, and then you go from there? Because you do have my address now. But
Absolutely.
could we please do that?
You bet. We do have the sign-in sheet with your name, and then there's the opportunity on the right to write address, city, and zip.
And then maybe we could make a place over on the side where we could put the phone number in case you have to get in touch with us over something.
Perfect.
Okay, the other thing I was wanting to ask, this is my New Year, so I'm getting to ask a lot, okay? On this thing about giving everyone 3 minutes, I have noticed when I was laid up in the hospital and watching all of these meetings, people are still turning to you for the answer to their questions on that 3 minutes, and they don't have time. Could we consider making that a 5-minute rule in the future for 214?
Council has considered things at many times in our when we go on a council retreat about length of time when people speak.
Okay. All right, welcome. Congratulations, Mark. I look forward to talking to you later.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck, guys.
Great, thank you. The next on the list is Jerry Smeeds, and we do have your address already written down.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Congratulations, Mr. Mayor. And I do live in Bothell. I have been here for 35 years. I'm here tonight as a member of the board of directors of the Friends of North Creek Forest. I know you're familiar with that organization. And first of all, I just wanted to reiterate our deep appreciation for all of the work that the city has done in helping us to move forward and acquire that property and preserve that for the future, for conservation, for education, for stewardship. It's a tremendous thing, and we really do appreciate your effort. One of the things that our group is doing this year, we've kind of dedicated ourselves to ramping up our efforts to increase significantly our capital campaign to try to generate additional funding for a purchase of the remaining acreage of the forest. You may recall last year, Friends of North Creek Forest, Help Our Woods, and the city were working together on a grant application to the Norcliffe Foundation. Thank you. I didn't think I spoke that slowly. But the Norcliffe Foundation, as a part of that grant process, had requested a letter from the city demonstrating or confirming that the city was, in fact, in agreement with the stated goals of acquiring this property and so forth. We understand that that's a similar type of documentation that's going to be required by other granting agencies, particularly when you're looking at significant sums of money. And so we would ask the city to work with us to develop a written form of support. It could be a memorandum of understanding, a resolution, just confirming the city's commitment to work with neighborhood organizations like Friends of North Creek Forest, Help Our Woods, any others that may be out there, so that we can be a little more efficient and effective on our grant proposals. We'd be happy to work with your staff to develop a document for your review. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Appreciate the work you and Mr. Freeze have done, and several neighbors. Is there anybody else you were the last on the sign-up list. Anybody else from the public that'd like to address the council this evening?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Just in response to the last two speakers, is it possible for us to direct staff at this point to engage in writing a letter of support to the Northcliffe Foundation, and then B, putting on our discussion for the review of the protocol manual at the retreat, both the practice of publicizing addresses and extending public testimony when appropriate? I mean, can we?
Yeah, to the second item, I think it would be appropriate to talk about how we address our meetings and conduct our meetings when we come up to our council retreat. On the first item, maybe we can set something later tonight to discuss it, because I don't know enough to be able to just address staff to move forward and address the letter. So if there's consent of the council, we can put
Just
that
have
at the
a
end
brief
of our
discussion at the end of the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. 2 items have been pulled, item A and item D. Is there a motion to move the consent agenda?
So moved. A second.
So a motion by Councilmember Spivey and a second by Councilmember Lamb. Actually, tonight I believe we're doing everything by voice vote. No, I was told no buttons. Is that correct?
Correct.
It's not matching. Okay. So all in favor of moving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So it moves unanimously with Councilmember Agnew absent and excused. So the first item is, I guess we'll go in order, would be the minutes from December 3rd. Councilmember Rayum.
Thank you. So we had this come up in the minutes previously, and the issue that has come up is being unexcused absence or not. And in the minutes for December 3rd, in a few different instances, it has listed that Councilmember Ewing was absent and unexcused. And looking at the protocol manual, the only way to be an unexcused absence currently in our manual is if you don't call and then you don't show up to a meeting. And so I would like to have the minutes reflect, we could just delete the word unexcused and just say Councilmember Ewing was absent. He obviously wasn't absent and excused, which there was other council members that were absent and excused. But
I can interrupt you for just a moment. I'm looking on page 9. Council members present, it says Patrick Ewing. Is there a different place on the minutes from December 3rd?
it'll take me a second to bring up the page number.
Okay.
Oh, you got them right there. Oh, there's one, the page number.
I found it's on page 5 of 7, or on the agenda packet 13 of 53 at the bottom, where it says Councilmember Rayum was excused for the duration of the meeting at 7 p.m. Is that where you're looking?
Yeah, and then it says
Councilmember Ewing left the dais at 7 o'clock as well, and Mayor Lamb advised the council member Ewing was not excused. So, do you want to speak to that?
I would move that we approve the minutes as presented. And I'll speak to my motion. Councilmember Ewing at that meeting left and was advised, and it deprived the council of a quorum at that time, and he was advised when he was leaving that it was unexcused. As a result of that, the council had to be in recess for approximately 45 minutes while members of the public waited. I think, although the protocol manual arguably would be silent on whether or not that was excused or unexcused, it was the ruling of the chair at that time that that absence was unexcused. He was advised that it was unexcused, and he left anyways. He didn't respond afterwards to an attempt to bring him back to the meeting. And again, members of the public who had come to testify that evening had to wait for approximately 45 minutes till a number of council member came. So I believe that he was present at the meeting. I think Councilor Rayum asked and told, all you need to do is say, look, I'm leaving, or this, I'm going to be taking off. That's not what happened, and it deprived the council of the quorum. I stand by the ruling of the chair, and I'll be voting to approve the minutes as presented.
Great. Councilmember Evans.
Well, I read the protocol manual also, and it isn't clear on that, how that should be an unexcused absence. And I think that's something we need to clarify in the protocol manual during our retreat. But I think just as a courtesy of someone walking away from the dais, it's one thing to walk away and go to the bathroom or get a drink and come right back, but it's another thing to walk away, not give any indication at all of what, Councilmember Rayum, you made that intention to tell the mayor you were leaving, and for a good reason, and so I guess the protocol manual is something we need to be straightened around, but the fact is we were in a public hearing on a particular item, important item, that we needed an agenda, or that we needed a quorum here, and to just get up and walk away and not say anything to anybody else on the council. I don't know if he said anything to you or not, but you guys walked out together. I don't know whether he said anything to you or not, but I just think that was professionally very uncourteous and to the rest of the council. So I understand the protocol manual isn't clear on that, but I think just the professional part of this was very uncourteous to the council and the public as a whole. So as far as I'm concerned, he walked away and he was unexcused. All he would have had to do is make a mention to the mayor that I need to leave for this or that or whatever, and it would have been taken care of. But it wasn't handled that way, so I think he was unexcused.
Any further comments? Councilmember Rayum.
I'm not going to support the motion. It just seems like a slippery slope to have people arbitrarily deciding whether or not somebody's excused or unexcused. And I don't disagree with anything that anybody has said up here about what occurred that night. I just feel that, as a council member, you should have the right to protest and get up and leave a meeting. I mean, that's something that's been brought up. They brought it up when I went through the new council member training. That you definitely don't say I'm finished and then get up and leave, because then you actually are off the council permanently. But that was the defining line that they gave us. But regardless, it's not unheard of for people to especially in a minority, to get up in protest of a meeting, especially when they can make as though there isn't a quorum. So I just don't think it's the position of a chair to decide whether or not somebody is excused or unexcused. We're all adults here, and I don't disagree with what was said about, it was in the middle of a public hearing, and it was rude to the people that were here, but at the same time, it's just a slippery slope to have just the ability to decipher whether or not somebody's excused or unexcused.
Great, thanks. Anybody else? Councilmember Sandberg.
I know it's voice vote, so if you can just give a pause so that I can abstain from these because I wasn't here.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Councilmember Lamb, and I believe the second was by Councilmember Spivey. Is that correct? And that would be to move the minutes as written for December 3rd. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And how about?
Abstain.
Abstaining. All right. Good. So we have Councilmember Spivey, Councilmember Lamb, Councilmember Evans, and Freed in favor. No vote was by Rayum, and abstention was by Councilmember Sandberg. And we have Agnew is absent and excused. So you got all that? Perfect. So moving on to the meetings do you want to state your reason, or is it pretty clear?
Yeah, it's pretty clear. So on the December 10th meeting minutes on page 20 of 53, I believe there is an error. The speaker's name is not Sarah Linker, it's Sarah Winter. But I will still abstain. But I ask that.
I will move that the minutes be approved as amended, as suggested by Councilmember Sandberg.
So we have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? Seeing none, the motion is made by Councilmember Lamb, second by Councilmember Evans to move.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Evans is asking me, it's winter like the season.
Winter. To move the December 10th minutes as amended with correcting the last name to Winter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Abstain.
So we are, the yeses are Councilmember Spivey, Evans, Lamb, Freed, Rayum, and with abstention with Sandberg. The next item that was pulled from the consent agenda was by Councilmember Sandberg, which was item D, which is the consider renewal of a lease on First Church of Christ Science for use of parking lot. Councilmember Sandberg.
Thank you. I sent a couple questions to the city manager today, and if you could just respond, that'd be great.
Actually, I think it'll be our Public Works Director or maybe our Public Works Superintendent Clark Meek who will be responding to those questions. Thank you, Councilmember Sandberg.
Mayor, Council, it's my understanding there are two questions that Councilmember Sandberg put forward. First of all, would there be a reduction in our insurance rate if we were to not renew this lease and terminate it? And the answer is it would be a minuscule reduction, if any at all. It's on a list of properties, and we have very many on that list. The other issue, there are two errors in the agenda bill and the attachment for clarification. Draw your attention to paragraph 4 in the agenda bill. It refers in the second line that the city pays a rent of $20 per month. That is correct. But if you'll go to the recommended action, it refers to an annual rent of $120. That should be read $240 annually. And in the attachment or the actual lease agreement, in section 4 under rent, that should also read $240.
So an annual rent of $240.
Correct.
Any further questions?
Yeah. So the first question really wasn't actually my question, but it was a good question nonetheless. I was just curious how much we pay each year in liability insurance. And are you saying that it's just folded into the entire city package, so it's just
correct.
nominal?
Yeah.
Okay. And so if we pay annual taxes of $4,678 and the liability insurance is essentially negligible, and we're going to have rent at $240 a year, are we still estimating maintenance costs at $7,000 a year? I'm just curious how we get to $12,240 a year.
The additional item is, of course, utilities, which is minuscule, of some area lights in there. But yes, we do cleanup of the leaves, litter, and maintain the landscaping in there and clean the parking lot as part of the agreement for a full 12 months of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Councilmember Rayu?
I move to move the recommended action with the Scrivener errors obviously corrected.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? Seeing none, the motion is to consider acceptance of a 5-year parking, or to accept the 5-year parking lease as amended, which was in the agreement, section 4, to change the amount from $120 to $240. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So it passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is new business. So AB 14-1 5, consider approval of a resolution related to the North Shore School District measures on the February 2014 election ballot. It looks like we have our City Attorney, Joe Beck.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. This matter is brought before you to consider adoption of a resolution related to the North Shore School District measures on the February 2014 election ballot. They are Proposition Number 1, North Shore School District Number 417 Renewal Education Operations Support Levy. Proposition Number 2, North Shore School District Number 417 General Obligation Bonds in the amount of $177,500,000. And Proposition Number 3, North Shore School District 417 Renewal Capital Projects Technology Levy. These are explained in the agenda packet, and we're bringing forth an agenda bill and a resolution that is consistent with what the city has considered, the council has adopted in the past. We've maintained the format that the council has approved previously. As part of your consideration tonight, there needs to be an opportunity for both a pro and a con statement. If doesn't mean you have to have somebody pro or con, but anybody that would like to speak pro or con is entitled to approximately equal time to do so. So I would request that you make sure we provide that time for people to comment one way or the other. And then we do have a recommended action, and then that is to adopt the proposed resolution related to the North Shore School District's Proposition 1, 2, and 3 scheduled for the February 11, 2014 election. With regard to any questions regarding the proposition itself, I'm aware that representatives from the school district are present in the audience and are ready to speak on behalf of this resolution. And so I would ask that you direct your questions to them. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Joe. So at this time, we'll ask members of the audience, is there anybody here who would like to speak on this item? Yes, ma'am. So 2 people. Would you like to come forward, state your name and your address? That would be great.
Excuse me. And I'd like to start by clarifying, I'm not actually a representative with the district. I'm a citizen here with, my name is Julia Lacey, with the City of Bothell. Do you need my entire address?
If you would like to write it down rather than state it out loud, you certainly could, based upon maybe where this
and you have it as well. I
going.
spoke at the last meeting, and it's also printed in your minutes that you just approved. So
Perfect.
It's there.
Thank you.
As I was saying, my name is Julia Lacey, and I'm here as a representative of Citizens for North Shore. I am able to get information from the district if there's specific questions. I know there were some earlier today, and I will be happy to speak to and answer questions as best I can and find answers if there are other things that council members would like. Again, I'm here on behalf of Citizens for North Shore, and I'd like to ask the council vote in favor of approving or adopting this proposition. While serving on the North Shore School Board for 4 years, I've had the opportunity to work with several of you on different joint programs or projects, whether it be the transportation of the facility property up near Thrasher's Corner, the McMinimans project, Pop Keeney. I really enjoyed the relationship. I think we're very fortunate, both agencies, to have such a positive relationship together, and I look forward to years ahead. Obviously, a strong city and a strong school district together makes a strong community, and it does nothing but serve the citizens and the community that we both represent. So, again, I hope you all are able to support this and that all the measures pass and put forth to our voters on February 11th. So, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Sir, if you come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is John Moen. My address is 16422 29th Drive, Bothell, Washington 98012.
Thank you, John.
I'm actually not here as a representative of the school district either. I'm here as a scout leader, but I am also a teacher in the school district, and I'm very proud to be part of North Shore, and I'm very much in support of the measures we've got on the ballot. It's a vital part of the important work that we do, and I thank you for your consideration and hope that we can work together to get this done. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there anybody else from the audience that'd like to speak on this issue? So we've heard from two pros. Anybody from the con side? Apparently not. So, Joe?
And then before you vote, I want to give everybody an opportunity to ask any questions. You heard comments from the public, but I do think that we have the resources to answer questions if there are questions that you have. So,
Good deal. So we'll open up to council. Anybody have questions for Attorney Beck? No? Councilmember Evans?
I guess I have not necessarily a question, but a discussion of the council and our past practice in this. So when that comes about, I'd like to discuss that with the council.
Councilmember Spivey, do you have any questions? No? Okay, so let's go into discussions at this point then. Oh, you do? Oh, I looked at you in the eye, but we do hold on for just 1 sec? All right.
It's a real easy question. Where could I go to? Is there a website the North Shore School District's put up, obviously, that discusses these levies in some detail? Other than
I was able to find that by Googling it, but I'll let somebody speak to that more. Do you have? Okay, I'll ask Julia to tell you a little bit more about that.
Hi, Andy. So did you want specific information regarding sort of what would be, what the funding would go towards, or how the decision was made, or the tax ramifications, or?
Probably all of the above. I'm just uninformed about it, and I'd like to learn more about each proposition and what it will fund, and how the decision was made to go to a proposition, and also what it would cost in tax increases for my
Absolutely.
household.
Well, obviously, I'm happy to talk to you if you want. If you have more questions, I was a part of the whole process getting to this point when I did serve on the board. NSD.org, they've got quick links on the left column of the top of their webpage. They have a lot of the details, a lot of the figures, charts, maps, very specific information. You can get kind of a very high-level look, or you can get down pretty specific. It's got both kind of options there for you, videos all the way to a lot of data. Citizens for North Shore, just www.citizensfornorthshore.com also has information as well.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor.
Perfect. Councilmember Lamb?
I think Councilmember Sandberg had her hand up first.
While we have Ms. Lacey at the dais, our agenda packet included information of cost per $1,000 assessed value for the two levies, but not for the bond, the construction bond. I was wondering if maybe you could speak to that.
So is your question, what is it for the bond, or why is it not printed in the proposition?
Or approximately what is it for that bond? I mean, I know that it changes from year to year.
Yes, would you? Thank you. So I did get the question today, and so was able to get the information from the state. This might be a good one to start with as well. So this is more general. It shows the breakdown of the total amount. So you see on the bottom the existing bond debt, kind of going forward, maybe down just a little bit. There you go. And that's the, what was it, $4, and what was the dollar amount for the levies? I'm sorry. I moved it. Yep. So that's what that small section is, and then here's the dollar amounts that actually shows what that chunk on the bar graph represents in dollars. There you go. Thank you. Does that make sense? So, and it is kind of an interesting thing, because obviously, as you know, as council members, we have an increase of businesses moving into the area that helps reduce the percentage that homeowners pay per the assessed value of their home, as well as the increase in their assessed value. So if you're looking at the rate, that they're paying based on the value, not to mention the number of new homes. So we just have obviously more people moving in, building more houses, and paying into the pot. So that's where, and we're even thinking that these numbers are conservative. Unfortunately, the county's a little bit slow in updating assessed values. The printed information had to go off of, I believe, 3-month-old information, because the information now will come out in January, and the printed information for the proposition was due to the county prior to. So every time the new information comes out, these amounts get smaller, but
So the new bond that is on the ballot is represented by the lightly shaded gray area from 2014 on.
Yes.
Okay, so it's the small portion, not in relation to the existing bond debt.
Yes, so you see it's getting larger as the existing. So the goal of North Shore School District, they work hard to try and maintain a level amount of debt, and that's what prevents that up and down for homeowners, for taxpayers. You'll see it different in other states. For example, Lake Washington is floating a substantially large, I think it's in the $775 million realm. So homeowners in that area are going to see a substantial spike because they've had a fairly level, and there's going to be a jump. So it's one thing that North Shore has really tried to do. And there's been some criticism on that. There's a lot of growth on the north end. People are asking the district, why are they not building an elementary school as well as a high school? This is why. So we would have to ask for a larger chunk of money right now to do both projects at this time. Homeowners would see a spike in their taxes. And it's really their effort to try and maintain as level of a tax as possible so that there isn't added difficulty for homeowners.
So if you were to tell the average citizen who had a $300,000 home, we can say that your tax rate isn't going to increase substantially, like maybe a few dollars a month. Do you know what that is?
We've worked it off by the information that we've put out publications. We've worked it off a $400,000 home. And right now, based on current assessed values, it's looking at $5 to $6 a month. So
extra over what we pay now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Lamb.
Julia, thanks so much for coming tonight. I had a question, and this is mostly something that I've just heard from people in the community about the bond campaign, that and we sat through a joint presentation from the school district to the different city council of Woodinville and Kenmore and Bothell, but it has to do with the patterns of students and where they're going and why. Am I correct that there's currently sort of a discrepancy of the populations of different junior high schools throughout the district? That some have more students and some have less?
Yes.
And is it in the new growth for this high school? A lot of people have asked, and I think maybe it's because they're confusing those two issues, have said that we don't really need a new high school. We just need to reallocate people within the high school that we have. That even if we were to do that, there would still be, based on our projections, a deficiency. Am I right on that?
Yes. So if we did nothing, just left everything the way it is right now, Bothell High School would crest 1,400 students in the next. And I'm really, really bad at quoting numbers. I can absolutely get you the enrollment information, but if those kids continue to come down, there will not be room for them at Bothell High School. If this bond doesn't pass and we don't build a new school, we still need to educate children. What will happen is they will be bused to those schools that do have room, and that'll be the alternative. They'll end up taking kids and moving them east, which is where there's more classroom space. Does that answer your question?
Kind of. So I guess as a follow-up to that if right now Woodinville is not at capacity or is not or wouldn't be, is there, do the population projections that we have suggest that if you were to redraw the lines, which everybody knows is very unpopular, if you were to redraw the lines, there would be enough space, you just have to reallocate people at different high schools? Or is it something where, are we building the new high school to avoid redrawing the lines, or are we building a new high school because one or more, clearly Bothell would be a capacity, but would Woodinville and Inglemore also be a capacity, or no?
Eventually as well. They're not seeing the same kind of growth. But one thing that I haven't mentioned at all is the change in how grades are grouped together. By how you help the overpopulation at the elementary age is by taking sixth grade out. You can do some adjustments with boundaries, but really if you take a whole grade out, you're going to open up more space. And then moving the sixth graders to middle school, then the ninth graders up. And the desire to do that is not driven by population. It's felt that that's a better for kids. I had an opportunity to teach in a middle school. It's not a small junior high. It is a completely different approach to education. Junior highs are much more of a small high school. A middle school really is geared towards that middle-aged child. And so
I went to a middle school when I was
Yeah.
going through. I went to a middle school, and
So it's-
I would agree
it's
with
a
that.
very different approach, and so that decision's being made for academic reasons. Most of the country, the state, the region is all on a four-year high school. So state standards are based on a four-year high school and a middle school. Curriculums are developed and written based on. So if you went in your elementary school now, your sixth grade teachers are teaching out of a different math book than the fifth grade because how they're required to teach and what they're required to teach is tied to seventh and eighth grade.
So and maybe I'm not understanding, but I think is part of what you're saying that then the new high school will help that you're adding a total new year to all of the high schools, not just to the new one that would be built, and then that by conversely would sort of help eliminate the overcrowding that we're seeing at the elementary school because you're taking a whole grade away.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. That's really helpful.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anybody else, any further questions? Seeing none, let's jump into discussions. Councilmember Evans.
Thank you. And we get requests occasionally, and I guess it's occasionally from agencies to pass resolutions. And I am recalling a discussion that we had, and I think, Mayor Freed, you were one that was kind of leading this discussion, or at least expressing a point in it, which I listened to and I thought was a good point, that we want to encourage our voters to vote. That's really important. But I thought what we decided was that we weren't going to tell our voters how to vote. And it's clear in the resolution that we passed in 2010, the wording is the exact same as what's here. But in Section 1 of the new resolution, third sentence there, that it talks about to be worthy of your support and request. So to me, that implies that we're supporting this and wanting other people to support it also. To me, which then flies in this issue of, are we telling people how to vote? And so, and I can just say that I'm very supportive of this bond issue. I certainly believe in education and think it's important, but as I've thought about this, I'm concerned, and I think you were the one who initially brought it up, that we should be encouraging voters to vote, but not telling them how to vote. So with that in mind, when this comes up, I would like to give consideration to changing the word to be worthy of your consideration rather than your support, and then that continues on to examine the issues and vote, which I think has been our intent all along, but I'd be interested in what the rest of the council has to say about that.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Spivey.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Evans, I believe, is correct, and we recently took the stance that he described with the King County EMS levy, something that is part of our public safety initiative, and so I guess we need to send a consistent message. This is what we need to do. So.
Okay. Great. Any other further discussion? Councilmember Sandberg.
I had also flagged that language. It's on page 37 and 42, noting that it said worthy of your support and not worthy of your review or consideration. So if you make the amending motion, I will support that, just so we are consistent with past council practices, even though I personally support the levies and bond.
Sure. All right. Anybody else? Councilmember Raym or Lamb? Councilmember Lamb?
I would make a motion then at this time to approve the resolution, except with the language change from support to consideration.
So there's a motion by Councilmember Lamb and a second by Councilmember Evans to approve the resolution as written with one change, to change the word in Section 1 from support to consideration. Any discussion? Councilmember Spivey.
Thank you, Mayor. I just think it goes to showing our consistency, and again, we had an issue that's very passionate to me, where we took the stance of people, please consider this, and explore it, do the things you need to do to educate yourself, and please vote. But we didn't take a stance, so I'm supportive of the motion.
Yeah. I am supportive of the motion as well. It still is a positive statement, in my opinion. It's worthy of your consideration. So we're still stating in a positive way. It's something that you should think about. But anybody else? Okay, seeing none. The motion was made by Councilmember Lamb, second by Councilmember Evans, to move the resolution as written with the change in Section 1 of changing the word to be worthy of your consideration. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So the motion passes unanimously with Councilmember Agnew absent and excused. The next item on the agenda is AB 14-6, consider adoption of legislative priorities, and Joe Beck is back with us for the presentation. Joe?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This next item is your legislative priorities for 2014. I brought this to you at a previous study session. There was, at least I perceived, broad consensus that we were on the right track with regard to these top legislative priorities and additional legislative priorities. There was one item, the very last item on the additional 2014 legislative priorities that Councilmember Rayum identified as needing some updating language. In the holidays and such, we had trouble connecting, and so I took what information I could get from him and crafted some new language that hopefully addresses the current state of this item. I believe last year there was some proposed legislation that would have actually provided for the formation of a stakeholder group. This year we don't have that on the horizon, at least as of yet. So we needed to tweak that language to provide a slightly different, a broader sort of statement of support to the idea. But I tried to do that and maintain the council's concerns and sensibilities from the last time around in the language that I drafted there. So that's my attempt at capturing this issue. Certainly that's open to council consent or change or whatever you may see fit. Since I presented this in a little more depth at the study session, I won't go into any further detail than that, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Great, thank you. I'll just ask the first question or statement. I'm hoping, I know people have busy lives up on the dais here, but I'm hoping that everybody's able to go down to Olympia and join fellow council members to lobby for the city. If you're not, share with us who are going down, what might be important to you, and hopefully these are the items that are. But let's open it up to discussion or questions. Anybody have any questions? Councilmember Spivey?
Thank you. Joe, could you confirm those dates again for me, please?
The dates?
Of the
dates of
Yeah, they're the 30th and 29th and 30th. And I do have some responses, and I do have you down for a particular day, so I won't announce that over the air unless you want me to remind you of what you're committed for. But anyway, we can talk about that, about scheduling and that sort of thing on an individual basis if you'd like, after the at some future date. But I do echo those sentiments. It's nice when staff goes down, but it's twice as nice when we have council members there to show their concern and add their voice. So.
Perfect. Do we have an agenda yet for the 29th and 30th? I know you've been probably
we
working
have a
hard on the
preliminary
30th.
agenda. But we're still, it's because it's a short session, we're still making appointments.
Okay. And on the 29th, we usually have a city gathering with Woodinville and others. Is that scheduled for the 29th?
I do not
as well?
have that scheduled yet, and I'm
Okay.
not sure if it will be scheduled.
Okay. Great. Any further questions?
I'd move the recommended action.
Councilmember Sandberg?
I had asked earlier how much money and for what projects had the city historically received Public Works Trust Fund money for?
And I'm going to defer that question to Public Works Director Aaron Linhart. So, Aaron, if you could answer that, that would be great.
Yes. Most recently, the city received $5 million for the Crossroads project and $800,000 for the Horse Creek project. We were slated and approved by the Public Works Board last year to receive $13 million for the Multi-Way Boulevard and Horse Creek, but the legislature did not fund the Public Works Trust Fund last year, so we didn't receive any funding there.
And did we receive anything for the Public Works Op Center?
No. Prior to that, I believe 10 years ago, we received $2 million for water main replacement, so it's been periodic applications.
And then the other question I had, because I don't know what it is, and it sounds like maybe Council Member Rayum knows, is what are watershed investment entities? And why are they on our priority list?
So that's a good question. So the issue at hand with streams mostly is that the cities are organized by water resource inventory areas or watersheds, and we live in the Cedar-Sammamish watershed. And we implemented a plan across all the cities about 10 years ago to put a whole package together of projects that we thought were necessary to fix the current situation with Chinook salmon and other salmon populations. And quite frankly, we did not execute the plan. Only 10% of it's been funded. Coupling that with stormwater becoming a much more expensive issue moving forward, it seemed to make sense that, and there's a lot of money actually coming in to do stormwater retrofit projects. It seems that it's important to try to set up regions, or at least maybe even the WIRA basis. It's as stated as entities, because I guess it could be adjusted based on what people wanted to do. But the idea would be to try to create one silo to get the flood districts, the conservation districts, and the WIRAs all to work together and have a prioritization of projects and plans for that individual watershed.
But with no authority to collect tax revenue.
No.
So I have a question for you as well, as you're open to it. Do you have examples of where that's been successful? Like
in other places?
I guess in other places, yeah.
I
what
think
kind of things have been done?
The most impressive example I have is New Zealand. They actually redelineated their state boundaries on watersheds for this exact purpose, using just jurisdictional boundaries that are straight lines across the landscape is pretty difficult when you're trying to deal with natural systems, especially how water flows downhill. So it doesn't care where your jurisdictional line goes, and so it makes a lot of sense to try to address all of the issues that are related to stream habitat and rivers, or even the Puget Sound for that matter, on a watershed basis.
Interesting. Sounds like an opportunity for the council to go and make sure that works down there in New Zealand. All right. So any further questions or comments? If not, Councilmember Lamb.
I'd move the recommended action.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Lamb, a second by Councilmember Evans. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Sandberg.
I wanted to make an amending motion, and I recognize that I was not here for the study session discussing these priorities. But when I looked at the list, the first thing that struck me is that there's just too many of them. And when you have too much to read, most of it ends up in the garbage can as opposed to some of it. I'm concerned about that. And for me, it seemed like the first thing, our first priority, that the thing that should be listed first was to make the liquor and 502 revenue sharing, make that item first. Because I think it's a more realistic ask than asking for $34 million in Multi-Way Boulevard funding request. So I wanted to make that minor change. Right now it appears as number 2, and I wanted to make that as number 1. So that would be my first amending motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Would you like to speak further to your motion, or?
Nope, I think I said it.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilmember Evans?
It's my understanding that there's the first page, the first two, the economic stimulus and the liquor and I-502, that is our agenda, our priorities, our top priorities. They're not one or two. That's our top priorities. And this document, I believe, will be handed to our legislators, as many of them as we can get it to. The rest of this information is kind of backup information, explaining what our position is on that. You're right, it probably will never get read, so that's why this first page is so important. And I don't disagree that I-502 isn't a very important issue. I think our Public Works Trust Fund, I think there's a good chance we're going to get a transportation package of something approved. So I don't see it as one or two. I see them both as very important, and at least that's the way I would be presenting it to a legislator down there, that here's our top two priorities. Here's additional information regarding them if you want to look at that. Here's our basis, our position of these things. But it's really the first two. And then there's some supplemental ones that we've added there that we throw out every year, like you say, and maybe they get read, maybe they don't. But at least that's my understanding of the platform that we have here in front of us.
Great. Anybody else?
That's also my understanding of the platform, and I don't think it was intended to order one over the other. And I actually think that the the transportation proposal that we have, simply because they could give us something on that list without costing themselves any money, like a local benefit option, is maybe even a more viable option than the liquor, where they actually have to give up money that they're currently taking for their own things. But I think they're both really worthy. I agree with Councilor Evans. I don't think there's not an order to them, and what isn't any more important than the other. I think they're both there, and there are two priorities, and so I won't be supporting the amending motion.
Great, thanks. Anybody else? Councilmember Rayum or Spivey? No? All right, well, the motion or the amendment on the floor was made by Councilmember Sandberg and seconded by Councilmember Rayum to switch the order of the economic stimulus and the liquor and I-502. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And all opposed, say nay. Nay.
No.
So, I heard a yay from Councilmember Sandberg and 4 nays. Is that correct? Or 5 nays. Sorry, I'm really good at counting. Is that correct? Did I have you right? Okay, good. So that fails. Councilmember Sandberg, you still have the floor.
I would like to make a second amending motion to restructure the language in the first major priority, which is economic stimulus and infrastructure investment. The supporting documentation centers around asking for, looks like, close to $34 million in capital projects, $28 million of that for the Multi-Way Boulevard. And I think it is more important to prioritize requesting the matching fund request for the downtown contaminated soil cleanup and the matching fund request for 522. I think it's more important to prioritize those over asking money for the Multi-Way Boulevard for a couple of reasons. Many cities would consider that Bothell has gotten a lion's share of state dollars for capital projects. We've gotten money for the Campus South entrance, for the lift loan, for the 522 realignment, Public Works Trust Fund loans. And so now we're asking for even more money for the Multi-Way Boulevard. And I think it's a more reasonable ask, given that we have matching funds and because these are projects that resulted not from our own doing. So, for example, the increased impacts on 522 due to the 520 tolling. I think it is more realistic and more appropriate to prioritize that request versus the Multi-Way Boulevard. I mean, I have my concerns about the Multi-Way Boulevard because I remember when the boulevard was first proposed in the downtown master plan, and a very agitated member of the public asked me, well, how are you going to pay for that? And I thought that was a really great question, so I turned to staff and I said, well, how are we going to pay for the Multi-Way Boulevard? And the staff's response at that point was, it will be paid for private development as redevelopment occurs. but now we're asking the state to fund that project. And so I think there are a couple lessons to be learned there in recognizing that the downtown master plan, although a great vision, also was created as a nice picture without a lot of financial details attached to it. And now that financial details are becoming clearer, it might behoove us to modify elements of the downtown master plan so that they're more realistic, as opposed to going to the state and asking for money for projects where I think we would be more successful if our request was more reasonable. And so I would like to make the amending motion that in the section, that first section, economic stimulus and infrastructure management, we highlight the request for matching funds for the downtown contaminated soils and the 522 matching fund request.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Sandberg and a second by Councilmember Rayum. And to make the following change, I'm looking, are you talking on this bold sheet or on page 2 of 3?
So on the bold sheet, that would require some wording on economic stimulus, rewording on that.
Does your motion include that language at this point?
No.
I didn't hear it.
No, but I mean, you can basically cut and paste the information from on page, agenda packet page 47 of 53, downtown contaminated soil and groundwater remediation. You can cut and paste some language from there, and then on the following page for 522.
So
the page 49 of 53, 520 bridge mitigation.
So is your motion to have the staff come back with the changed language, or is your motion that we're changing language? Because I'm not clear exactly what changes to the language that you were requesting.
My motion would be first to get council approval to emphasize request of the downtown contaminated soil, emphasize the request for that, whatever, $3 million, and emphasize the 522 mitigation dollars, that request, which is $3 million, roughly $3 million each. Emphasize those requests over the $28 million ask for the multi-way boulevard.
So are you requesting to simply do that by changing on page 2 of 3, item 2 to item 1, and item 1 to item 2? By changing the location of it?
All right, can you tell me which agenda packet page number?
So I'm looking at agenda packet page 57 of 53, where under capital contribution says number 1, the multi-way boulevard 2 and 3, and then number 2 is downtown contaminated soil and groundwater remediation, which at the bottom of the second paragraph contains your 3.2 million and a 3.3.
Okay, I'm sorry, you 47 of 53?
47 of 53.
Yeah, I would move up number 2.
Okay.
Which is downtown contaminated soil and ground remediation.
Mm-hmm.
That request. I would move that above multi-way boulevard phase 2 and 3. So move 2 above 1.
Making 1 and then 2.
And then we have, then later on page 49, it says draft additional legislative priorities. And the first one is 520 bridge mitigation.
And where is that going now?
I would make that number 2. So the first priority is asking for the matching funds for the soil contamination. That would be number 1.
Yep.
And number 2 would be asking for matching funds for 522 dealing as 520 mitigation.
Okay. And then the number 1, formerly the Multaway Boulevard, is that number 3?
Yeah, it would be, down at
Okay.
the bottom of the list.
So if I understand your motion would be, and the seconder would need to agree that on page 47 to 53, item 2 is now 1. On the next page, the bridge mitigation would be item 2, and then the Multaway Boulevard would be item 3. Is that your motion?
Yes.
Okay. Is the seconder, you're agreeable to that? Are there any comments in regards to the amendment? Councilmember Spivey.
So it seems like on page 47 to 53, the bullet capital contribution that we've been toying with here, that paragraph should be reworked also then for fluidity of. So did you consider that in your motion?
I guess what I want the wording change is to prioritize the downtown contaminated soil cleanup and 520 mitigation over the Multaway Boulevard request.
So her motion was to move the downtown contaminated soil, groundwater up to number 1, to move the 520 bridge mitigation from the additional to make that number 2, and then the Multaway Boulevard to be item 3 under capital contributions. It was a reallocation of paragraphs. If you wouldn't mind, Councilmember Lamb wanted to jump in.
Well, I just
Go ahead, you still have the
briefly,
floor.
It just seems like there's more work to the document than just switching those paragraphs around, and I can't support something that until I see the final product or have something to look at. So,
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Lamb.
I'll be supporting the legislative priorities as drafted.
Okay. Anybody other comments on the amendment? You want to speak to your Councilmember Evans?
Go ahead.
Which one?
I think there is time, if the council agrees with the concept, to allow staff to rewrite that. If you don't agree with the concept, then you vote no. If you would consider agreeing with the concept, but you need to see the actual language, then you could vote yes. My point is that I think it's unrealistic to ask for 28 million, and then so you ask for what's realistic first, and you put that at the top of the list.
Okay. Councilmember Evans?
Well, I think Councilmember Ream had his hand up first if he wants to go, and then I'll go after him.
Go for it.
I'd like to make an amending motion to, on page 47,
sorry.
I can't do that.
There's an amending motion already. So we have to vote on this one, then you can pull something new to the floor.
Okay.
So do you have a comment on this? Okay. So Councilmember Evans.
Well, I think we're getting hung up on the 1s and the 2s and the 3s. I understand there's some reprioritizing here, but to me they're all priorities. And I'd like to have them all. But you may be right. We may not get all that we're asking for, but what we're asking for and what we're getting, we can ask for a certain amount and they can fund it accordingly as to what's available to them. I guess, if I could, just a question of staff. The contaminated soil remediation funding, that's different. That's not under the Public Works Trust Fund. That's under the Model Toxic Control account. Is that correct? Or
well,
not?
it is a different fund. It's not the Public Works Trust Fund. That is a loan program, and the remedial action grant program through Department of Ecology is what we would be asking for the contamination cleanup.
And we have been successful in getting grant funds there for that, and are continuing to ask for more there.
Yes, we have.
And those are smaller amounts. I know the 520 mitigation is an issue that several cities along the corridor here are working. And I don't know. I haven't seen much progress in that at the state level, whether or not we're going to get any mitigation money there. I know it's been before the legislature a couple times, or at least, and we haven't made much ground there. So it's still an important issue. But as far as ranking these, I don't see that maybe as number 2. I don't see that as important as contaminated groundwater, our improvements to the Multi-Way Boulevard. You're right. We may have to go back and look at that project and how we fund it and what we do with it. I think it's a great design. Like you said, it's a pretty picture, but how do we fund it? And I think that's something this council is going to have to be looking at in the future. But I'm certainly not afraid, and I guess I haven't heard from other cities saying that we're getting the lion's share of all the revenue out there. I haven't heard that. Maybe you have, but I think we need to. We've got a good project in the region we're getting funding is because we've put together a good plan, and so I'm not afraid to ask for that money, and knowing that it may get cut back some. Again, to me, they're all priorities. If there would be any help there to take the numbers away and make them bullets, a sub-bullet or something, So again, it's like the first page. We're not. This is our priority list. It's not top priority or the second priority. So I'm fine with the way it is. I understand what Councilmember Sandberg's saying. But I think that. With those concerns or questions in my mind, I'm okay leaving it the way it is at this point, not knowing that in the future that there may definitely need to be some changes.
Great. So I think everybody's had a chance to speak with me. I appreciate what you're trying to do here. You want to go get the money that seems like it's right there to grab. It's like the low-hanging fruit. For me, when I go down to the legislature and ask for this $28 million, I'm not going to say it's something that we want. It's something that we need. Of all the cities that are around us, I think Bothell is the most impacted by the tolling. So I appreciate you bringing up the 520 bridge mitigation. That's extremely important. But the reallocation of the priorities, at this point I can't agree with. I want to make sure that we get the Multi-Way Boulevard funded. I think the mitigation can be part of that conversation for how that's been impacted, make sure the traffic flow through downtown Bothell is adequate. So I really appreciate you bringing the last 2 amendments forward, but at this point, I'll be voting on that one. Well, having seen that everybody's had a chance to speak, we can vote on the amendment that's on the floor. That's a motion by Councilmember Sandberg, seconded by Councilmember Rayum to reallocate the positioning of number 2, the downtown contaminated soil, to number 1, to make bridge 520 bridge mitigation item number 2, and then Multi-Way Boulevard Phase 2 and 3 to item number 3 under capital contributions. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay.
No.
Nay. So we have 2-4, which would be Councilmember Sandberg and Rayum, and the rest opposed, and Councilmember Agnew absent and excused. Any further amendments, Councilmember Sandberg? Cool. Councilmember Rayum, you said you had one.
I was trying to see if I could help a little bit here with the idea, because I think it's important to get the SR 520 mitigation up in front, and especially under capital contributions. I think the capital finance committee, I believe it's called, down at the state, would be the same people that would look at this bullet. So it'd be important to have in here. So my amending motion would be to change. So on page 47, the bullet says capital contribution. Bothell also requests capital funds for. This is where the change comes. SR 520 mitigation, comma, phase 2 and phase 3 of the Multi-Way Boulevard, comma, strike out all the millions of requests and stuff in there, and the downtown contaminated soil and groundwater remediation. And the other part of the amendment would be to move up the SR 520 mitigation to be with items number 1 and 2 underneath that bullet. And also remove the numbering system to have a bullet instead of the numbers 1, 2, and 3 would be the new SR 520 mitigation piece.
Second.
And what positioning, we have a motion and a second, what positioning would be the 520 bridge mitigation, would that fall under the downtown contaminated soil and groundwater remediation?
You know, once you remove the numbers, I guess I don't really have a preference, so it could just go wherever.
Okay, so the motion as I heard it was Bothell also requests capital funds for 520 bridge mitigation, comma, phase 2 and 3 of the multi-way boulevard, strike the entirety of the 19 million phase 2, so on, and funds for downtown contaminated soil and groundwater remediation. Anybody would like to make comment on this amendment? Councilmember Lamb.
I appreciate the spirit behind the amendments. The 520 bridge mitigation, again, I mean, I would take staff's comment that I don't think these are being prioritized. I would echo what Councilor Evans said. The possibility of getting 520 bridge mitigation, I don't rank as particularly high. I think that is a pretty extreme ask. I think it's the right thing to do, but in this case, opening up tolling for a use other than building the bridge, which currently is not doing as well as they had hoped in terms of the tolling or diverting tolling revenue to that, is something I strongly believe in. I think it's a very heavy ask. The other thing is that the one remaining portion of that is for a portion that's in unincorporated in our annexation area going forward. So I mean, we put a lot of money into 522. We've gotten a lot of funding for 522. The city of Kenmore has also put money into 522. I think that in terms of what is sort of missing or what we need, I think the priorities that we have now are all worthy. I think they're ordered appropriately, and I'll, as I reiterated earlier, I'll be supporting them as drafted by staff.
Any further comments on the amendment? Councilmember Evans.
I don't know if it's, I guess the question I have of staff, if that's okay to ask a question. I know normally we don't do that at this point, but
We'll be flexible.
How important are the dollars are going to be listed there somewhere in a grant application or something anyway? Do they need to be here in this first paragraph under capital contribution? The 19 million for phase 2, the 9 million for phase 3, the 20, are those numbers are going to come out somewhere?
They are, but specifically, I suspect what we'd be asking for is a specific allocation of funds that would be routed through a grant opportunity, existing grant opportunity in the state. So I think it is important to have the dollar values. That will be the first question that will be asked as we advocate for a project. What is the amount that you need? What is the project cost? How much are you willing to contribute? Would you consider something less than what you've asked for? Typically the questions that arise during those legislative discussions.
Well, I guess that's kind of, at least in my past of applying for grants, you ask for this knowing you may get that, but you may get something less too. So I guess I don't have a problem with Councilmember Ream's motion to take those out of there, but I don't think it, I don't think it hurts for them to be in. They're going to come out sooner or later what those numbers are and what the requests are through the grant application. So anyway, thank you.
Any further comments? All right, seeing none. The motion on the floor by Councilmember Rayum, seconded by Councilmember Sandberg, is to change the language in capital contributions from Bothell also requests capital funds for 520 bridge mitigation, comma, phases 2 and 3 of the Multiway Boulevard, strike the entire bracketed section, and continue on in funds for downtown contaminated soil and groundwater remediation. The numbers would change to bullets. It would stay in order, but add the 520 bridge mitigation paragraph to the end of that section. So all in favor, say aye. All opposed, say no.
No.
No. So we had 3 ayes. I heard an aye on my left. Was that Councilmember Evans? Oh, that was Councilmember Spivey. So that's 3 ayes and 3 noes, so the motion fails. Any further comments? No? Any further amendments to this? Further comments? No? Councilmember Spivey?
Mayor, I'd like to be excused. I'm feeling a bit under the weather, and
I
probably
think
should go
got
home.
me this evening, sir. See you, Deputy Mayor.
All right, thank you. Thank you all again.
Seeing no further comments, we would move to vote, and I'm going back to my notes. This was, I believe, moved by Councilmember Lamb and seconded by Councilmember Evans. And no changes were made through all the addendum amendments. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Didn't we already do that?
There was no discussion on the main motion.
We did. We discussed the main motion. You made 2 amendments to the main motion. That was the discussion section.
Oh, so you can't discuss on the main motion. That's fine.
I thought that was your
Oh, I know what I'll
discussion
do. Wait, I know what I'll do. Say, you go ahead. The vote's aye, and then all opposed.
So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, and I'd like to state my reason for the record.
Okay.
So sorry, I'm just trying to get back into the swing of the process, but I'm a little bit late to the legislative priority process here. I would have voted yes, but because I think it's important that the council has legislative priorities.
Yeah.
I just think it's important that I know there's the logic of asking for the sky and then settling for something below it. I also think it's important to be realistic, and I just want to share with you all that I remember when I said there are some that feel that Bothel's gotten a lion's share. That came from Senator Mary Haugen. I think she's the transportation chair, and she was quite pointed the last time I was down at one of the AWC conferences. And so I think we just need to be mindful of that, because I think she's still there, right?
She is still there, and she's always pointed.
Yes.
She is not still there.
Oh, she's not there anymore?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's something I was not aware of. Okay, so I just want to make sure I have the record correct. I had ayes in favor of Evans, Freed, Lamb, and Rayum. No as Sandberg, absent and excused as Agnew and Spivey. Okay, good. So moving on to the last scheduled item, we do have one more that was added at the beginning of the meeting. This is in regards to the consider dates for annual council retreat. We do have a calendar before us, and our city manager is coming forward. It doesn't list suggested dates, but typically in history in the past, we've had a Friday night and a Saturday. Over the last 2-3 years, we've really only just had a Saturday meeting, and it seems that we are able to get everything in that period of time. So, I mean, I don't know if anybody has any suggested dates. My personal preference of number 1 would be February 1st. I'll just throw that out there.
I'd support February 1st as well.
I can't make February 1st.
Okay.
I can make the previous Saturday or the following Saturday.
And the previous Saturday, it looks like, is the 25th of January, and then the 9th, or the 8th. So let me just write this down. We have Sandberg and Sandberg. This is going to be difficult because I can't make it either one of those. What are your preferences, Councilmember Evans?
I can make it on the 25th.
Okay.
I can make it on the 1st.
Okay.
The 8th and the 15th. That next weekend's probably a holiday weekend, so that might not be a good one.
The 15th would probably be a holiday weekend. The President's Day, the 17th.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe the following weekend, the 22nd, would be okay. I don't have any plans, so I'm here all 4 of those Saturdays in February.
Okay. Councilmember Rayam?
I can do just about any of them, or I can do any of them. But the holiday weekends, it would be nice to not meet on that weekend.
Yeah. Councilmember Lamb, your preference was the 1st?
My preference was the 1st as well.
As was mine. Let me just take a quick look.
I can try and rearrange, but I know 8th is free. I can try and rearrange for the 1st.
You know the 8th is not free? Or
No, the 8th is definitely free. The 1st currently is not, but possibly with enough advance notice, I can get that changed. So I will agree.
I could work. I mean, if
I can do the 8th.
I can do the 8th if you're.
Okay.
So it looks like all of us can
you
do
do
the
the
8th.
8th? Okay.
So we're going to subject Agnew and Spivey to the 8th.
Okay.
They have no
Okay.
choice.
All
Does
right.
that work for you, that's important that you're there.
Yes, and thank you for the opportunity, Mayor. The 8th is a date that Councilmember Spivey had previously indicated he was not available. Now, that may have changed. That also happens to be a date in which the particular location that we were looking at holding the retreat would not be available. This is a retreat that, at least for the last 9 years, we've held in the city, and so we have a variety of options. The 8th simply wasn't available for the restaurant and the meeting room facility that we're looking at this year, but not to say that we couldn't pick another location.
I can try for the 1st.
Sure.
I just want to, if I can't get the day off, I don't want to be excluded.
You will be excluded.
I was afraid of that. So I will check with work and see if I can switch, and then I will let the council know as soon as possible.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Councilmember Spivey. Sandberg. It sounds like the 1st would be the primary date that we would like to, and Councilmember Sandberg work on getting excused from work on that day.
Okay, thank you, Council. I'll work on a draft agenda, circulate that to the Council, and as you have feedback when you receive that agenda, let me know, and we'll finalize that in advance of February 1st.
Great. Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Evans.
I do think this is probably one of our most important meetings of the year, so I really hope we can find a date that works for all of us, because I really think it's important that we all be there at this meeting, and so hopefully it works for you. If not, hopefully maybe we can work around your schedule too, but I think it's just important that we all be there, so that'd be great.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Sandberg, the item you wanted to add to the end was in regards to the forest conversation. Do you want to take over that?
Sure. So we had a member of the public ask the city to write a letter of support to a foundation so that would complete a grant proposal. And so I would just like to know, does staff know about this? Has the Friends of North Creek Forest approached staff as well to ask about writing this letter of support? Have we done letters of support in the past to other granting agencies? So pretty much all it means is changing the subject, the address to line. I mean, what are the other implications of the city writing a letter of support?
Well, certainly we've have supported other grant opportunities for the North Creek Forest. Accepting property, regardless if by grant funds or not, should be done only with the city performing its due diligence and a fair amount of consideration given to both the liability and the resources necessary to maintain that property, as well as analyzing from a risk perspective liability and then balancing that with community benefit. So having said that, yes, we have supported proposals for purchasing property in that area. Whether or not the council believes that the merits outweigh the disadvantages is really a policy discussion for the council to hold. And if council's in favor of such an action, certainly the city could write a letter of support on one parcel or all the parcels, or could simply determine that its liability and resources do not allow it to extend any further beyond the property that we own currently today.
Well, thank you. Well, I would say given that this group and other groups have made such progress in purchasing and conserving significant portions of the North Creek Forest, that we ought to continue the momentum and the hard work that this group is doing for the benefit of the city in providing this urban forest, in directing, and I would ask that you would agree with me to direct staff to work with Friends of North Creek Forest to draft this letter of support to Northcliffe Foundation and then bring it back to us for future consideration.
Okay. Other council members like to speak to this item? Councilmember Evans?
Sure, I would be willing in seeing a draft letter. Again, I need to know what the parameters of that are, what our commitments are, what our liabilities are, at least some review of that. So if the draft letter can come back, if more information can be given to us about if there's matching funds they're requesting or whatever the case may be, that's fine.
I would agree with Councilmember Evans. I concur, and I think that Friends of North Creek Forest and other groups have done great work in acquiring these properties, and I think we look forward to working with them collaboratively. But I also think it's important that we have staff get together with them and bring back a draft, and whether that would be in the form of a resolution or whether that would be in the form of a different, I think you could do one resolution that would perhaps include that, or direct staff on an ongoing basis to work cooperatively with them so we don't have to address this issue on an ongoing basis. I think that would be better than sort of directing them in this one-off situation to do that. I think I fully support adding that to the projected agenda to come back, and then maybe we could just have a resolution that would say work with them in the future, and we could sort of address it globally so that we don't keep coming up on this issue. Because I think the city manager is correct that the issue of acquiring the additional parcels is a policy decision, and it's probably something that we should do intentionally and thoughtfully and with some deliberation about what our policy is on the remaining acreage. But I, too, am very excited about that, and I, too, appreciate the sentiment behind this. So that's where I stand.
Great. Councilmember Rayum, do you have any comments? No? Good. Well, it sounds like you have a majority of council that would like to have this come back at on the projected agenda, so in the near future. Do you have anything else for us this evening? No executive sessions or city manager report?
We do not, Mayor.
Great. Next meeting of the City Council will meet here on January 14th at 6 o'clock for a study session. So, seeing nothing else on the agenda, we're adjourned.
I'll second the motion to adjourn.
Any conversation? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? So we're adjourned.